Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. Time for another transfer update, looking at all the things that have been going on in and around the transfer rumour mill to do with Liverpool in the last few days, and starting off with some pretty big and pretty exciting news, if you are willing to believe it. Liverpool have apparently agreed personal terms with Naby Keita. Apparently representatives of the club have met with the player, they've agreed personal terms, they've agreed contract length and wages and everything. So again, if you are willing to believe this, obviously anything that comes out during the transfer window, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, and this piece of news is no exception. But if you are willing to believe it, then it is very exciting news, because it means that Liverpool are getting serious about this transfer, because for most of the transfer window so far, it's felt like this was maybe one that was a little bit too ahead of Liverpool, not kind of the transfer that we were actually capable of carrying out during this window, and it felt like fans were getting their hopes up a little bit too much by thinking we were going to get the player, especially when the price tag being given to him was around about £70 million. But if we're meeting with him and agreeing personal terms, then it's a sign that we're taking this deal seriously and we genuinely believe we're going to get it over the line. This also comes alongside the news that apparently Liverpool are willing to bid that £70 million. They're going to try and call RB Leipzig's bluff and see whether we can test their resolve, see whether they'll crumble at the offer of £70 million or whether they were bluffing all along and it turns out that actually the player is not for sale for that price. If you ask me, I don't think £70 million will be enough, because if they set that as their opening price and they really don't want to sell the player, then I think simply meeting that price isn't really going to be enough. But I think if Liverpool do bid that amount and then enter into some successful negotiations, hopefully with RB Leipzig, where they can talk about maybe things like add-ons, little extra clauses, say if Naby Keita achieves any particular thing at Liverpool, sort of like Man United did when they signed Anthony Martial from Monaco and signed him for around about £36 million, but in a fee that would rise to something around £55 million, depending on various add-ons that could come into play. Again, Naby Keita, like Anthony Martial, is quite a young player, so it could be possible that those clauses could come in simply to protect Liverpool if they don't want to bid so much for a player that at the age of 22 might not fill all of the potential that he has. But there's a slight concern around this as well, simply because if Liverpool are meeting with Naby Keita and trying to agree various things about the deal before they've actually made any proper bid to RB Leipzig yet, then it could count as another case of tapping up. And as Liverpool fans, I think we all know that that is not the route that we want to be going down after the Virgil Van Dijk saga. So Liverpool are playing it a bit dangerously here, but I think it's probably simply a contingency plan. So if negotiations with RB Leipzig do take a while, then by the time we agree a fee, we don't have to start faffing around and trying to agree terms with Naby Keita as well, and we can simply sign the player once the fee is agreed and get him going in pre-season and ready to become a Liverpool player when the Premier League season starts. So exciting news. Hopefully it's true. It's still no indication that the deal is anywhere near a completion just yet, but it is heading right now in the right direction, hopefully. Next up, a bit of news on Virgil van Dijk. It's not exactly anything humongous in terms of Liverpool's pursuit of the player, but Southampton have given a contract extension to their 18-year-old centre-back Jack Stevens, who deputised for Virgil van Dijk when he became injured halfway through last season, and have also signed a new Polish centre-back called Jan Bednarek. So whether or not this is a contingency plan, whether or not it's a sign that Southampton may be getting a little bit nervous over whether or not they'll be able to hold their nerve and hold on to Virgil van Dijk this summer, or whether or not this is a contingency plan for when they almost inevitably will lose him at some point, whether it's this summer or next summer, that the player might move on. It's nothing huge in the way of updates or signs of what actually might be going on behind the scenes of Southampton, but it does offer a glimmer of hope to any Liverpool fans who were hoping that that deal would go over the line. Also, Chelsea, this is a slightly tenuous link here, but bear with me. Chelsea have apparently agreed to sign the centre-back Antonio Rudiger from Roma for a fee of around €35 million. It was reported that Chelsea were also in for Virgil van Dijk, and after the whole fiasco around Liverpool's attempts to sign him, they might actually swoop in, meet the £70 million valuation and sign him instead. But if they're signing this new player, perhaps it's a sign that they're moving on from any pursuit of Virgil van Dijk and abandoning that deal, which would obviously be good for Liverpool, because while we do know that Virgil van Dijk apparently does want to join Liverpool, he's very keen to work under Jurgen Klopp, according to reports that came out earlier on in the transfer window. Money does talk in the transfer market at the moment, and if Chelsea did come in with a bigger bid from Liverpool and with negotiations that would go smoother than if Liverpool were to try and sign the player, then they could easily swoop in and sign him instead. So this sign that they are bringing in someone else is a good sign in terms of suggesting that they are pulling out of the race for Van Dijk, and it will be Liverpool who are the only club left to try and sign him. But for now, at least, I don't think too much is going to be going on with this, simply because with all that went on earlier in the transfer window, with the whole fiasco that was just a total mess in the end and really was quite embarrassing for the club and wasn't great for PR at all. I think that Liverpool are just going to leave this one to lie for a little bit and then maybe revisit it later on in the window, which is a little bit concerning, because I think the danger of leaving these deals to come later on in the window is that if they don't work out, then you haven't got that much time to seek alternatives, so Liverpool could be backing themselves into a corner a little bit. So I think it's possible that later on this month we might see the club looking at potential alternatives at centre-back, just in case the Van Dijk deal doesn't get resurrected at any point. Next up, apparently Roma have made an inquiry about Liverpool left-back Alberto Moreno. They haven't made any formal bid yet. Apparently this inquiry was made while the negotiations for the signing of Mohamed Salah were going on. They simply asked whether Moreno was available and whether or not they'd be able to enter any sort of bidding for him. Liverpool have, of course, already rejected, I think, 2 bids for him. They rejected Napoli's £11 million bid, and apparently Swansea also bid £13 million, but Liverpool are still holding out on that £15 million valuation. But if they are willing to sell him this summer transfer window, then I think it's a sign that they will be bringing in some sort of left back at some point during the window. The Andrew Robertson links have resurfaced over the last few days, so it's possible that Liverpool may try and bring him to the club this summer. I think it's highly likely if Moreno does leave, because if he does, then we won't actually have any recognised left backs in that first team squad. So even if we are willing to go into the season with James Milner as our first choice left back, it would make sense to at least sign someone who's backup, who can maybe then develop into a first team player over the next few years, and Andrew Robertson would probably be that kind of player. But as it stands, Liverpool are holding out on that £15 million valuation of Alberto Moreno, and it's possible that Roma may be willing to meet that valuation later on in the window. And finally, some bad news to end the video on, I'm afraid. Apparently, Crystal Palace have dropped their interest in Mamadou Sakho. It isn't entirely clear why they've apparently done this. It could have something to do with the bringing in of new manager Frank de Boer. It's possible that he may not see Mamadou Sakho as suiting his style of play that he wants to implement at the club. But if you ask me, it's probably more linked to money, because Liverpool slapped something along the likes of a £30 million price tag on the head of Mamadou Sakho, which is obviously huge for a club like Crystal Palace to pay, especially given that it was only last summer that they forked out a massive £30 million for Christian Benteke from Liverpool. So they may not be willing to spend big on any star players during this transfer window. And so it simply looks like they have been priced out of that Mamadou Sakho deal, and they are going to look elsewhere for some new centre-backs. And this is a bit of a blow for Liverpool, because I don't think anyone can really see him having a future at the club next season. By now, it certainly looks like Jurgen Klopp's just given up on the player. He wants to freeze him out. He wants to get rid of him to raise funds to bring in other players. And if Liverpool are going to follow that sell-to-buy model, which they followed last summer, I don't think we're going to end up with anything like the positive net spend that we ended up with the last summer transfer window, because that was obviously a massive clear out, and I don't think we're going to match that this summer. But we are going to probably try and sell quite a few players at fairly reasonable prices, like Moreno for £15 million and Sakho for £30 million, to try and raise money for these big deals. And if we want to sign players like Naby Keita or Virgil Van Dijk, who are going to cost in the region of £70 million, then we do need to sell players like Mamadou Sakho. So hopefully Liverpool can find some other potential suitors for him if Crystal Palace are pulling out of that deal. So that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I'm afraid this is the last transfer update video that will be out for the next couple of weeks, because I am going away on holiday in a few days. So hopefully there will still be some videos coming your way during that time. I'm going to try and get some pre-recorded content ready, so there's not going to be complete silence on the channel while I'm away. But if you do want to keep up with any transfer news and any of my opinions on what's going on at Liverpool, then don't forget to follow the Twitter account of the channel at LFC Focus TV, because I will be tweeting all about events at the club while I'm away on holiday over that account. Other than that, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new around here, and check out some of the other videos that have been out on the past few days. And I will see you in a bit. Bye for now.